Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mug Up with BB&C. My name is Anise, and with me is Kayla.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be back.
Today, we have a special guest, June Tracey. June is a BB&C elder from Nondalton. Hi, June. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you.
We are so happy you're here, June.
Before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your ties to Bristol Bay?
My name is June Tracey. Dinhaina Schlanchida, Rachi Schlanchida, Shushkoyach, Nuvendalton, Shushtuta, Neklai, and Sophie Beluda. I'm the second daughter of 12 siblings, 6 surviving today. I'm a wife of 49 years. I have 3 children. I've got 14 grandchildren, some of them adopted to me. 5 great-grandchildren, 4 great-granddaughters, and 1 great-grandson. And born and raised in Nondalton.
Awesome. Bob's not here today. Bob is your husband.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob's not from Nondalton.
No, he's from California.
From California. How did you meet Bob?
He was a caretaker up at Lodge in Lake Clark, and he had dog team, and I had a small plane, and my aunt used to live up there, so I used to go up there and visit, and he'd come down with his dog team. So.
And he met you and was like, this lady's a catch. I just got to stay in Nondalton.
Well, we used to drive dogs. I used to go up there, and sometimes I'd go up and we'd drive dog teams together. I used to take him to the dog races over in Cockenock.
Yeah. Did you guys face, and sorry if this is too much of a loaded question, you don't have to answer it. Did you face any adversity marrying someone outside of your community?
Mm-mm.
Good.
Yeah, Mom and Dad accepted him when Mom was alive, and Dad took him out and see if he was going to be a good son-in-law, and took him out hunting and see what he could show him and what he could do. Mm-hmm. So Dad must have been satisfied. He was still my husband.
So if your parents didn't like him or didn't approve of him, you wouldn't have married him?
Not really. I think my dad and them was, they knew, but they also wanted him to be a provider. Mm-hmm. And, with me marrying an Irishman, I've always thought that, Mom used to always tell us not to marry anybody around here up on the Kuskokwim and the Yukon. Holy Trunbug. I'll just get my sister and they'll say, how come they always tell us that? Mom said, well, they're probably your relative.
True.
It's just the reason why my grandpa was originally from Lime Village. So he went all the way up to Russian Mission to pick up his wife. She came in and got adopted by one of the clan members, and she ended up being a Gachi, Raven clan. So that's what I am. That's how come I like to be nosy, be mouthy. A nosy old woman. And, we've been together just about coming up on 50 years,
Wow, that's amazing.
I'll tell my daughter, I say, sometimes I just want to throw your dad away. And she'll say, Mom. I said, what? She said, who's going to clean your trun line? That means our sewer line.
Who's going to chop your wood, June? You need to keep Bob around.
Me.
Yeah, that's true.
You can do it. So, we've come a long ways. He's, starting his business. We got 3 different, he's got his air taxi, we got the B&B, and he's also in the guiding business. And in the guiding business, I've worked in the guiding business since I was in the early 20s, so that's where I started going from hunting camp to hunting camp. We'd fly for them, buy groceries, gas.
Was that your career, was being a pilot? Or how did you get into being a pilot?
How did I get to be a pilot? Well, when you're in grade school, you see a first airplane. You'll say, wow. And you're in 6th grade, you write a report and say, I'm going to fly that thing. But I never really, it never really dawned on me until we got sent away to boarding school. And I went down to Shemawa, Oregon, and they had they decided to have a pilot, or how you call it, where they had 25 students that was interested in flying from. And there was 25 of us, all from Alaska. I thought, I'll give it a try.
In that class, how many men versus women were there?
There was 2 women, one another lady and I,
Wow.
and there was all guys.
How old were you?
18. I just turned 18. And so I got into that program and was first one to solo, first one to pass my written, first one to get my pilot's license the day I graduated. That was a big success. And for me to do that, everybody, I don't like being the spotlight of everything, and they had the governor from Oregon come and congratulated me and had a big article in a newspaper, and it got to home. And
Were you the first Alaska Native woman pilot?
mm-hmm. So
June, you are so humble.
That's
a huge deal.
It
That's
was
amazing.
back in '69,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of, when especially natives, we were already having hard times with discrimination, but I always thought, no, how I could do it. I could do anything,
Love that.
If I could chop wood and race dogs, I could do anything.
So how many years did you fly?
Until 77. And then my first husband and my mom was killed in a plane crash. And I did for a couple of years after, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. And I didn't want to be the next. But I still, I had my own airplane. I did a little bit of flying around and stuff, but when your heart is not into it, it's no fun. And, you're more afraid than because of the tragedy that caused the death of your husband and your mother, But I've always been around. My husband now is flying, and he's got his own single air taxi. And we've done a lot of work, him and I, just to make our ways in Nondalton, support ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the reason why 5 o'clock comes really early.
And June, you run an Airbnb in Nondalton.
Not an Airbnb, B&B, because we've been doing it since the beginning of time, maybe. I always thought that since we've been having a lot of people coming through that didn't have places to stay, I'd start a B&B and have someone have a good place to stay in a warm house and clean bed and have a hot steam bath if they want to.
That sounds good right now.
Yeah, I love that. I was fortunate enough to visit Nondalton last year, and I stayed with June and Bob. And everyone kind of said, yep, that's just where you stay when you come to Nondalton. You guys have a pretty nice setup. You guys have your house and then a couple extra houses for our team. The girls stayed in one house and then the boys stayed in the other. Just super comfortable. You have your own kitchen. You have a nice warm bed. So it's amazing what you guys have built over there. And it's right on the water, too.
Oh, yeah, right on 6 Mile Lake. I always thought I was going to move out of there because I was born and raised there since 1949, Went to school for 4 years down in Oregon, but there's nothing like home. No matter where you go or what you do or who you visit or where you visit, there's nothing like flying through Lake Clark Pass and seeing Lake Clark. It's a beautiful water, and you're home.
A lot of our listeners might not have been to Nondalton. Can you share a little bit about what life is like there and maybe some of the differences from Anchorage or even the lower 48?
In the early days, when we were growing up, we had over 200 and something people living in Nondalton. And there was a community that gathered together. And it wasn't just the adults. It was the whole family. And the whole family was required to go attend meetings. And They had 7 different clans that ran the council, and each clan had a spokesperson. Any of the clan had any problems or issues, then they call a village meeting, and everybody attended. Living out in the area there, where we rely on each other. If somebody has a sickness, we'd get them wood. If they needed water, we'd get them water. We cook for them and take food to them. So we're always checking on people all the time. But nowadays, it's so much, well, the tribe did this. Well, the city did this. Well, the corporation's doing this. and I always think that if we start looking at the positive side of things, and things will turn positive. It may not be 100%. It might just be a little bit. There's always something to iron out. But we have to sit at the table. We have to discuss it. Otherwise, now there's a lot of villages, not only my community, where now we're down to 98 voter registration. And we have 16 in school, where we had one of the biggest schools in the region. Now we're down to 16. There's always something that starts from negative. But when you start working on it and start having your opinion, and there's something positive that comes out of it, and it makes a success. So that's one of the things I really am looking forward to. Is I think we're slowly starting to pull back together again. But if we don't, we're a dying village. Because a lot of these younger generation want to go and live a better life. And where our younger generation now, I see that a lot of them is forgetting our native ways of living off the land, with the fish, with the animals, or even going after wood.
If you could speak directly to those young people and share the experiences that you had as a young person growing up in Nondalton, what would you share with them?
I think, this time of the year we get all excited about going ice fishing, and everybody's getting on their snow machines and sharpening up their ice pick and going out all over on the lakes and opening fish holes and having picnics, sitting on the beach, and even skiing, snowshoeing, outdoor activities. We used to have a blast, going ice skating and playing crack the whip and skating all over 6 Mile Lake, And I see some now families trying to build back their fish camps, and that makes me proud, because fish camp is a family gathering. I have my grandchildren, I have my friends come down, and some of them don't even know about how to put a fish or using a smokehouse or even set a net or pulling up a net, And so it gives them something to do. And one of my grandsons, he just wanted to try everything. He was just saying, oh, wow, pick a net and going after wood for steam or the smokehouse. And it's a family thing, a family gathering. And trying to get them involved in doing things and how to put up fish and cutting fish, and just to see them gather around and, running down to the beach, jumping in the water, or some of them's trying to fish and some want to learn how to put up fish. So it's a family thing, and it's a family where we very seldom get together because everybody's living in Anchorage or living here, living there. We're all spread out. But when we come together, it's like everybody piles in a boat, everybody doing different things, summer activities. And, and we got our fish camp, somebody living next door to us at the fish camp. And sometimes all the kids go over there and all the elders over here. And it's like one big happy family. And it is. It's a time of freedom, of connecting with the way we did things before. Because, right after school was out, everybody, dogs, kids, everything used to go to fish camp, and that was our thing. And it's my thing now with my grandchildren's and my children's, One elder came and called me up, and he said, you should come up. So I went up to his place, and he said, I told him to get me a load of wood, dry wood. I said, oh, that's good. How much you paid for it? He told me $80. He said, but look, you call that dry wood? And it was green wood and some birch. I said, well, maybe they don't know anything about it. So, and I always think of when we were growing up, we'd be all excited. Our cheetah and cheddah's coming, and cheetah's going to make her fish nibble. Yum. But cheddah used to come down and converse with my dad because my dad was a traditional chief for the tribe that's been passed down from generation to generation. They used to always tell us stories. We observed a lot of things that they did. He said, but they used to always tell us, don't forget where you come from. Don't forget how to live off the land. Always, because there's going to come a time when you're going to be hard times where you have to rely on the land. The trapping, the hunting, the fishing, and how we take care of it, you know. I always try to tell my kids that. I don't know if they listen, but, you know, they trap. They learn to trap by their grandpa and learn to commercial fish. And when they come back from the bay, and my one son lived down Lower 48, he said, I just got to smell the ocean. Aww. And it like, you know, wow. Mm-hmm. I really never thought about it. I always tell everybody, I'm really an inland Indian. It's freshwater Indian. I really don't know that much about the coast, but I always think, wow, I never really thought about it. But, you know, it began with my dad as a commercial fishing in the sailboat days, you know. But it's like now my two sons are into it.
So your kids don't live in Nondalton anymore?
My one does. He finally moved back.
Okay. But I know you have a granddaughter and a great-granddaughter that live there, right? Because I remember when I visited last year, and there was this cute little redhead, curly-haired girl that came running across. And I was like, who is she? And you were like, that's my great-granddaughter, Periscopia. She is just the cutest thing. And I think that you still are teaching, and I love that you're still in Nondalton. You're still like practicing what you preach, just even with her. She was just running around outside, blowing bubbles, playing in the creek, 2 years old, going to the steam bath. You know, I love that you're still teaching that to future generations like her.
And it, you know, Mom used to always tell, when I die, not if I die, but when I die, I know that the next generation, that'll still carry on. Because Mom and Dad was really traditional, and my cheetah and cheddar was very traditional. You know, the granddaughter and the great-granddaughter, now she goes into steam bath, and she's very observant, and she loves her fish. She loves her moose meat. I always think about, because I had my two granddaughters off and on since they were babies, you know. And they were gone for about a year or so here in Anchorage, and they came back, and we had a big potlatch, and somebody cooked a big pot of moose guts, so I a whole bunch back, and I said, well, this is going to be their supper when they get home. So I heated it up and gave it to them, and they're eating it. This is good. I said, yeah, I know. How come they don't sell it in restaurants?
It's a Nondalton special, baby.
My cheddar used to always say, look at all those kids running around outside. They got no shoes on, and they're running on the rocks and running around and having fun. He said they're just little angels. They don't feel the hurt on their feet. They're just angels. So this is your responsibility to bring them up. And as we get older, now we step on a little Lego or step on a little rock or hopping around and hollering, ow, ow, put your damn toys away. But he said the reason why we're doing that is as we get older, we carry this burden. So that's the reason why we feel every little pebble or rock under our feet. And I always thought that, wow, I never really thought about it, but I start thinking about it when I see these young kids kicking off their shoes and running around in the water and rocks, and it doesn't faze them. But boy, when we get a little bit older,
June, you're a fluent Dina speaker, right?
Fluently.
Did you teach Bob or your kids or your grandkids or your great-grandkids? Like, are you kind of carrying on that tradition? Because I know Jinaina is a hard language to learn.
You know, when we were younger, I flunked third grade because I couldn't speak English. So,
Oh, wow.
you know, it was like, I was wondering, I thought, oh, well, why the hell did I have to be here behind everybody? Dad said, oh, they wouldn't pass you when you were in third grade because you couldn't speak English.
Wow.
And then I started taking classes at the university, and there was this guy here from Doyon. We were talking about it, and I said, well, when I try to speak English, they're always correcting me. And when I try to speak the language, in a language after not doing it since we were in grade school, I said, and they laugh at me. So I just learned to be silent. I listen. And one of the greatest tools that the good Lord gave us is ears and our eyes and our smell in our mouth. He said he was the same way. He said it puts a mental block in your brain that, you know, you weren't allowed to speak your language, or, well, if you did speak the language, then you didn't say it right, then they laugh at you. But if you said it in English and you said something wrong, and then they're correcting you, constantly correcting you, because you're not saying something right, or it should be said like this or like that. So I had heck with it. I could just listen, you know. And it really is. And since Mom and Dad passed on, you know, don't nobody speak around us anymore. And there's very few speakers that'll just talk and I have my first cousin, but she's got dementia now, and she's got her doctor's degree, and it's nice to just love to hang around her. But when she was teaching down in Kenai, and so we were always separated all the time. But we don't even hear the Dena'ina language now. So I always, whatever I could remember, or if I'm doing something, I'll remember how to say it. It's just like saying Hoya. That means children. I just say it in words just like Iachin, you know, or and not really have a full conversation. But I always talk to my sister, and she's fluent. She took classes, and
I think that's amazing that you're at least trying to hold on to the knowledge that you have. And I can imagine that you pass that down also.
Yeah.
oh yeah, my granddaughter, she always tell me, tell her to learn how to say Chinan. So it just comes automatic with her now. Chinan, you know, and it's like, you know, I try to teach her the animals like moose and caribou and fish and ducks. She's just 3 years old, but she catches on, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, June, before we close, is there anything that you would like to add?
That really is just that, you know, I have always enjoyed talking about our way of life as natives. I'm proud of who I am. We've come from all kinds of different nationalities, but we're still from the Bristol Bay Area, no matter what. And, you know, I always thought that, you know, the way now I see a lot of these young Native men and women coming up in this world and taking over. It makes me so proud to see these younger generation coming up, running for offices in the government, doing various different things that we used to always be ridiculed with, you know. Now I see you guys and I'll say, man, they're going to make it. We're tough natives. We got everything there is. And now look at all these young people from the corporations, from the state office, and to running our own communities. It makes me proud.
Well, June, thank you so much for being here, sharing your stories, your wisdom. I'm just so grateful to be able to listen to your wisdom. It's always an honor to have elders on our podcast. And so I just want to thank you for being here. And I just want to thank our listeners for listening. If you like this podcast, go ahead and follow us on Spotify or anywhere you get your podcasts. And with that,
We'll see you next time.
yeah, see you next time. Bye.
When you are one Bristol Bay, you share more than a place. You share a future. Distance doesn't matter because your home is here, always. Bristol Bay Native Corporation, always more than a corporation.